The courtroom was silent. Thousands of alien species watched from their seats as the final vote appeared on the giant screen. Guilty. The word burned bright in 100 different languages. Commander Taeho Kang stood in the center of the room, his hands bound behind his back. He was not alone. Behind him, 300 humans waited in chains. Men, women, scientists, soldiers, farmers, and engineers. They had come to space hoping for peace. They found only judgment. The High Judge was a creature made of floating light and shadow. It had no face, but its voice filled the room like thunder. Humanity has been found guilty of excessive aggression. Your species is too dangerous to join the Galactic Commonwealth. The punishment is exile. Taeho did not flinch. He had expected death. Exile seemed almost kind. You will be sent to Koroth 9. The judge continued. A Class 15 Deathworld. No species has survived there beyond 72 hours. May the stars have mercy on your souls. A murmur spread through the alien crowd. Some laughed. Others looked away in disgust. A few seemed almost sorry. But none of them spoke against the decision. The prison transport was called Eternal Dawn. It was a cruel name for a ship carrying the condemned. Taeho stood at the front of the cargo hold, looking at his people. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes. But they were also angry, and anger was something he could use. Lieutenant Yuna Park pushed through the crowd to reach him. She was small but fierce. With sharp eyes that missed nothing, she was the best xenobiologist humanity had ever produced, and she had volunteered to come on this mission. Now, she would die for that choice. I've been studying the data files they gave us, she said quietly. Koroth 9 has acidic rain, extreme temperature changes, and predators that hunt using sound. The atmosphere is barely breathable. Taeho nodded slowly. What else? The gravity is slightly higher than Earth. The days are short, and there's almost no plant life near the landing zone. She paused. It's bad, Commander. Really bad. From behind them came a rough laugh. Sergeant Do-hun Lee walked up, his scarred face twisted into a grin. He was the oldest soldier in the group, a man who had survived 3 wars and countless battles. Nothing scared him anymore. Sounds like a challenge, he said. I was getting bored anyway. Yuna stared at him. This isn't a joke, Sergeant. We're going to die. Do-hun shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. I've been to bad places before. I'm still here. He looked at Taeho. What's the plan, Commander? Taeho was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the other humans were listening, waiting. They needed something to believe in. The plan is simple, Taeho said, loud enough for everyone to hear. We survive. Not for 72 hours. Not for a week. Forever. They sent us to die. But we're going to live instead. We're going to build something on that rock, and when they come looking for our bones, they'll find a city. The cargo hold erupted in whispers. Some people thought he was crazy. Others felt hope for the first time since the trial. Do-hun just smiled wider. The alien warden was an insectoid creature named Vrel. He stood 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and eyes that glittered like black stones. He came to inspect the prisoners before landing, walking between them like a farmer checking livestock. When he reached Taeho, he stopped. You are the leader? The 23. The 23. 23, 23, 23, 23, 23, 23, I am. Vrel made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. I have sent many species to Koroth 9. None of them last. The strong ones die fighting. The weak ones die crying. Which will your people be? Taeho met his gaze without fear. Neither. Quote. The warden tilted his head, confused. Then what? Then, we'll be the ones who make you regret this decision. Vrel laughed again, louder this time. Amusing. I will remember your words when I watch your death from orbit. He walked away, still clicking with amusement. The ship began its descent. Through the small windows, the humans caught their first glimpse of Koroth 9. The planet was a nightmare made real. Red clouds swirled across a brown and gray surface. Lightning flashed in the distance, and even from space, they could see the scars of ancient violence covering the land. Yuna moved to stand beside Tejo. "It's worse than the files suggested." "It's worse." "Good," he replied. She looked at him like he had lost his mind. "Good? If it was easy, they would have sent someone to guard us. They think the planet will do their work for them. That's their mistake." The transport shook as it entered the atmosphere. The temperature inside began to rise. Outside, the acidic clouds scraped against the hull like claws. In the back of the cargo hold, Dr. Minji Seo was already organizing medical supplies. Engineer Sun Woo Cho was checking their tools, making mental lists of what could be built with what they had. Captain Hana Lim was studying maps, planning exploration routes for land they hadn't even touched yet. They were not panicking. They were preparing. The ship landed hard. The impact threw people off their feet, but no one was seriously hurt. For a long moment, everything was still. Then, the cargo doors began to open. Hot air rushed in, carrying the smell of sulfur and something else, something alive and hungry. The red light of an alien sun poured through the opening, painting everything in shades of blood. Tejo Kang was the first to step outside. His boots touched the soil of Koroth 9, and he took a deep breath of the thin, bitter air. It burned his lungs, but he didn't cough. He wouldn't give the watching satellites that satisfaction. Behind him, 300 humans followed. They spread out across the landing zone, looking at their new home. It was ugly. It was hostile. It wanted to kill them. Yuna appeared at his side again. "Well, Commander? Any final words of inspiration?" Tejo looked at the red sky, then at the distant mountains where predators surely waited. He thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about everyone who had voted for their death. Then he smiled. "Let's get to work." The first night was the hardest. When the sun dropped below the horizon, the temperature fell so fast that water turned to ice within minutes. The humans huddled together near the crashed transport, burning anything they could find to stay warm. 3 people died from the cold before morning. Tejo held a young woman's hand as she stopped breathing. He didn't know her name. He made himself remember her face. "We need shelter," Sun Woo Cho said when the sun finally rose. The engineer's face was pale from the cold, but his eyes were sharp. "Real shelter. Not this open ground. The temperature swings will kill us faster than any predator." "Find a solution," Tejo ordered. "You have 12 hours. Sun Woo didn't complain. He gathered his team and started walking toward the rocky hills in the distance. They needed caves. They needed something the planet couldn't tear apart. On the orbital station above Koroth 9, alien monitors watched with mild interest. The first night casualties were normal. By the second night, they expected the number to triple. By the third day, there would be nothing left but bones. Hour 12 came with blood. Sergeant Do-Hoon Lee had taken a patrol into the wilderness to scout the area. They found the thornback waiting for them. The creature was massive, bigger than a truck, with 6 legs covered in razor-sharp spines. Its skin was thick and gray, and its mouth was filled with teeth that could bite through metal. 2 soldiers died in the first attack. The creature moved faster than anything that large should be able to move. It tore through their group like paper, roaring with a sound that shook the ground. But Do-Hoon had survived worse. He grabbed a piece of broken metal from the transport's hull, sharpened to a point during the long journey. While the beast was busy killing, he climbed a rock formation above it. He waited for the perfect moment. Then he jumped. The metal spike went through the thornback's eye and into its brain. The creature screamed once and collapsed. Do-Hoon rolled off its body, covered in blood that wasn't his, and started laughing. When he dragged the corpse back to camp, the other humans stared in disbelief. No one had ever killed a thornback before. The aliens considered them nearly invincible. Dr. Minji Seo was the first to approach the body. She was a small woman with gentle hands. but she cut into the dead beast without hesitation. "There are glands here," she said, after an hour of examination. "They produce some kind of chemical compound. I need to test it." By hour 20, she had her answer. The thornback's venom could neutralize the acidic rain. Mixed with water, it created a substance that was almost safe to touch. The very thing designed to kill them had given them a way to survive. Una Park laughed when she heard the news. "The planet made its own weakness," she said. "It created predators with acid resistance. And we just took that resistance for ourselves." The aliens watching from orbit stopped laughing. Something was wrong. The humans should have been dying. Instead, they were adapting. Hour 36. Sun Wu-cho returned with good news. His team had found a cave system in the hills. It was deep enough to maintain stable temperature and large enough to hold everyone. Better yet, there were signs of water underground. Moving the camp took hours. They had to carry everything by hand across hostile terrain. The weak helped the strong. The old helped the young. No one was left behind. When they finally reached the caves, Sun Wu got to work immediately. He took apart pieces of the prison transport's technology, things the aliens had considered worthless, and built something new. A thermal barrier. A wall of heat that kept the cold out and the warmth in. That night, no one died. Hour 50. Captain Hana Lim led the first real exploration team. She was a woman who never sat still, always needing to move, to discover, to understand. The planet terrified her, but it also fascinated her. Her team found strange plants growing in a valley 3 kilometers from the caves. The plants were poisonous to touch, but their roots went deep into the ground where clean water flowed. With careful work, they could be harvested. With Yuna's help, they might even become food. Hour 60. The second thornback came. This time, the humans were ready. Dohun had trained a defense squad, teaching them how to move, where to strike, how to use the terrain as a weapon. The beast died faster than the first one. They ate its meat that night. It tasted terrible, but it filled their stomachs. Hour 70. The moment most species gave up. The moment when hope usually died, and survivors simply waited for the end. Taeho Kang called everyone together. 300 humans minus the 7 they had lost. They stood in the main cave, lit by fires they had built themselves, warmed by technology they had created from nothing. "They gave us 72 hours, Taeho said. His voice was calm but strong. "They said no one survives beyond that. They were wrong." He paused, looking at each face. "We're not surviving anymore. We're settling. This is our home now. Not because we chose it, but because we refused to die." The cave was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. The sound echoed through the tunnels. Loud and defiant. And alive. On the orbital station, Warden Vrel stared at the monitors in disbelief. He demanded the equipment be checked. It was working perfectly. The humans were still alive. And they were celebrating. A junior analyst named Thessa stood beside him, her thin fingers trembling. She was young, barely old enough to work, and she had never seen anything like this. "Sir," she whispered. "What exactly did we send to that planet?" Vrel didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. In all his years of sending the condemned to die, nothing like this had ever happened. Hour 72. The deadline passed. The humans lit more fires. Someone started singing. An old Earth song about never giving up. Others joined in. Their voices filled the caves and spilled out into the night. The sound reached the orbital sensors. Alien technicians listened in confusion. They had never heard such sounds from the condemned. It wasn't crying. It wasn't screaming. It was something else entirely. It was hope. Down on the surface, Una Park sat beside Taeho at the cave entrance. They watched the red sky slowly turn to black as another brutal day ended. "We made it," she said softly. Taeho shook his head. "This was just the beginning. The hard part comes next. Building a civilization on a death world? Making them regret what they did to us." Una looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. I can work with that. Above them, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, a galaxy was watching, waiting for humanity to fail. They would be waiting for a very long time. 3 months passed. The Galactic Commonwealth stopped showing footage from Korath 9 to the public. The recordings became classified, available only to high-ranking officials. What was happening on that planet was not supposed to be possible. The humans called their settlement New Dawn. It started as a collection of caves, but it grew into something more. Stone walls rose from the ground, reinforced with thornback hide that could resist the acidic rain. Watchtowers stood at every corner, manned by soldiers who had learned to love the fight. Sun Wu Cho never stopped building. He created an irrigation system that pulled water from underground rivers and filtered it through layers of rock and alien plant matter. The water that came out was clean enough to drink. He built heating systems, cooling systems, and storage facilities carved deep into the mountain. Yuna Park transformed the landscape. She studied every plant, every creature, every drop of poison the planet produced. Within weeks, she had created a farm. The crops were strange and tasted odd, but they grew fast and strong. Within 2 months, the colony had more food than they could eat. Do-Hoon Lee built an army. Not a large one, but a deadly one. Every adult learned to fight. They trained with weapons made from thornback bones and metal salvaged from the transport. They learned to move silently, strike quickly, and disappear before the enemy could respond. The predators of Korath 9 learned to fear human hunting parties, but the greatest change was in the people themselves. The fear was gone. In its place was something harder, something stronger. They had looked death in the face and refused to blink. Now they owned this world, and nothing would take it from them. Captain Hana Lim spent her days exploring. She mapped the mountains, the valleys, the rivers of acid that cut through the land. Her team went further than anyone had gone before, always searching, always learning. On the 93rd day, she found the ruins. They were hidden in a canyon 50 kilometers from New Dawn. Ancient structures made of black stone, half buried in sand and time. The buildings were massive, designed for creatures much larger than humans. Symbols covered every wall, carved deep into the rock. Hana stood in the center of what might have been a temple. Her flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing more symbols, more carvings, more secrets. "This is impossible," she whispered. Someone lived here. She returned to New Dawn with photographs and samples. Teho called an emergency meeting of the Colony Council. They gathered in the main hall, a cave transformed into a proper meeting room with chairs and tables built by human hands. Yuna studied the symbols for 3 days without sleep. On the 4th day, she called everyone back together. "I've translated some of the writing," she said. Her face was pale, and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The creatures who lived here called themselves the Makers. They were an advanced civilization, far beyond anything the Galactic Commonwealth has achieved. "What happened to them?" Teho asked. Yuna took a deep breath. "They were destroyed, hunted. Something came to this planet and killed every single one of them." She pulled up an image on the screen Sunwoo had built. It showed a carving of massive black ships descending from the sky. According to these records, Korath 9 wasn't always a death world. It was made into one. Someone changed the atmosphere, introduced predators, poisoned the water. They turned a paradise into a trap. The room was silent. "Why?" asked Jinu Baek, the young communications officer. He had been quiet since their arrival, working tirelessly to repair the colony's radio equipment. Why would anyone do that? Yuna changed the image. Now it showed a single phrase, repeated over and over across every wall of the ancient temple. "This is the warning they left behind." 3 words, written in 100 different languages so someone, anyone, would understand. The screen displayed the translation. "They will come." For the first time since landing on Korath 9, Teho felt afraid. Not of the planet, not of the predators, but of something older and darker waiting in the void. Sun Wucho had repaired the deep space sensors from the crashed transport. They were weak and unreliable, but they worked. He set them scanning the sky, looking for any sign of incoming vessels. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Life in New Dawn continued. People worked, laughed, built, and planned for the future. They almost forgot about the ancient warning. Then the sensors screamed. Sunwoo burst into the council chamber, his face white with shock. "Ships," he gasped. "Massive ships. Coming this way." Everyone ran to the observation point on the mountain. They looked up at the red sky and saw them. Black shapes moving against the stars, blocking out the light. Dozens of vessels, maybe hundreds, larger than anything humanity had ever built. "Those aren't Commonwealth ships," Hana said quietly. "The design is wrong. They're too old." Yuna felt her blood turn cold. The makers. The creatures who built those ruins. This is what killed them. The ships stopped in orbit. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then every radio in New Dawn crackled to life. A voice came through, ancient and terrible, speaking in a language that somehow translated itself into every human tongue. "New prey has arrived. The harvest will begin. Do not resist. Your end will be swift." Jinubek looked at Commander Teho, waiting for orders. The young man's hands were steady on the radio controls. "What do we do, sir?" Teho stared at the sky, at the ships that had killed a civilization and turned a world into a graveyard. He thought about everything his people had survived. The trial, the exile, the planet itself. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had finally found an enemy worth fighting. "Send a message," he said. "Not just to them. To everyone. The Commonwealth, the Council, anyone who's listening." "What message?" Teho turned to face his people. 300 humans who had become something more than human. Survivors. Fighters. Conquerors of a death world. Tell them that humanity knows who sent us here to die. Tell them we know what this planet really is. And tell them that we will deal with whatever is in those ships. He paused, letting the words sink in. "Then tell the Commonwealth to prepare their explanations. Because when this is over, we're coming for answers. And we no longer ask for permission." Jinnu sent the message. It traveled across space at the speed of light, reaching every corner of the galaxy. In 1,000 different observation posts, aliens heard the voice of humanity. They heard the cold determination. They heard the promise of reckoning, and for the first time, they understood what they had truly done when they sent those humans to die. They hadn't eliminated a threat. They had created one. The black ships hung in orbit like a disease. They did not attack immediately. They waited, watching, studying the tiny creatures that had somehow survived their hunting ground. In the Galactic Commonwealth, chaos erupted. The Hollow were supposed to be a legend. A story told to frighten children. Ancient records spoke of them as destroyers of civilizations, harvesters of life. A species so old that even the stars feared their shadow. No one had seen them in 10,000 years. Most believed they were extinct. Now they had returned, and humanity stood directly in their path. Warden Vrel received an urgent transmission from the High Council. His hands trembled as he read the orders. Contact the human colony. Offer them anything. Weapons. Ships. Technology. Freedom. Citizenship in the Commonwealth. Whatever they wanted, just make them fight the Hollow. Vrel had laughed when he sent the humans to die. He was not laughing anymore. On Korath 9, Teho gathered his council in the war room. It was a new addition to New Dawn. Carved from solid rock and reinforced with everything they had. Maps covered the walls, weapons lined the shelves. This was no longer a refugee camp, it was a fortress. "They call themselves the Hollow," Yuna reported. She had been analyzing the ancient maker records without rest. Dark circles hung under her eyes. But her voice was steady. According to the texts, they travel from world to world, seeding planets with hostile life. Then they wait. When a civilization sends its condemned, its outcasts, its unwanted to these death worlds, the hollow awaken. They harvest the survivors as food for their young. The room was silent. So every species that ever died on this planet, Do-hun said slowly, was eaten, not eaten exactly. The hollow feed on life force, on consciousness, on the will to survive. They don't consume bodies. They consume souls. Yuna paused. The stronger the prey, the better the meal. That's why they create death worlds. Only the strongest survive long enough to feed the swarm. Minji Seo closed her eyes. We survived because we were strong, and now they want to eat us because we survived. Yes. Hana slammed her fist on the table. Then we kill them first. Before anyone could respond, Jinu interrupted. Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Commonwealth. The message played on the main screen. Warden Vrel's face appeared, looking older and more afraid than anyone remembered. Humans of Korath 9. This is an emergency communication from the Galactic High Council. The creatures in orbit are an ancient threat, known as the Hollow. They represent an extinction-level danger to all known civilizations. We are prepared to offer full Commonwealth citizenship, military support, and any resources you require. In exchange, we ask that you engage and delay the Hollow while we prepare a proper defense fleet. Please respond. The transmission ended. Taeho looked at his people. They had been sentenced to death by these same aliens, abandoned on a murder planet to be forgotten. Now those same creatures wanted their help. What do you think? He asked. Do-hun spat on the ground. They can rot. We should ignore them, Hana agreed. Let them face the Hollow alone. But Yuna shook her head. If the Hollow win here, they won't stop. They'll spread across the galaxy. Every planet, every species, everything dies. Minji nodded slowly. She's right. We can hate the Commonwealth all we want. But the Hollow are worse. They're not trying to punish us. They're trying to consume everything. Taeho was quiet for a long time. Outside, the red sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. He thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about every human who would never know what happened here. He thought about the future. We fight, he said finally. Not for the Commonwealth. Not for revenge. We fight because that's what humans do. We fight because we refuse to be prey. He turned to Jinu. Open a channel, not just to Vrel, to everyone. Every species in the galaxy. I want them all to hear this. Jinu worked the controls. Seconds later, the transmission was live. Taeho stood before the camera. Behind him, his council gathered. 300 survivors of humanity's darkest hour. Their faces were hard and cold, and absolutely unafraid. This is Commander Taeho Kang of the human colony New Dawn. We have received your message, Commonwealth. We have also studied the enemy in orbit. We know what the Hollow are. We know what they want. And we know why we were sent to this planet. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. You tried to kill us quietly. You sent us to a world designed to destroy everything that lands on it. You expected us to disappear, to become nothing, to be forgotten. His voice grew harder. You failed. In observation posts across the galaxy, thousands of alien species watched and listened. Some felt shame. Some felt fear. All of them felt the cold certainty in the human commander's voice. We will deal with the Hollow. Not because you asked. Not because you deserve our help. We will do it because we choose to. Because we are human, and humans do not run from monsters. Taeho stepped closer to the camera. But hear this clearly. When the Hollow are ash, we will come for you. Not for war. For answers. Every species that voted for our death will look us in the eye and explain why. And if those answers are not satisfactory, he smiled. It was a terrible smile, the smile of something that had survived a death world and emerged stronger. Then you should start running now. The transmission ended. On the orbital station, Warden Vrel sat in stunned silence. He had watched countless species face extinction, He had seen courage and cowardice, heroism and despair. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans were not afraid of the Hollow. They were not afraid of anything. For the first time in his life, Vrel understood what true terror felt like. In the Hollow fleet, the ancient minds stirred. They had heard the human transmission. They had tasted the defiance, the rage, the burning will that radiated from those tiny creatures. The matriarch, oldest of all Hollow, opened her eyes for the first time in centuries. Her consciousness stretched across the fleet, touching every one of her children. "These ones are different," she whispered. "They burn brighter than any we have harvested before. They will make excellent feeding." Her children screamed their agreement, a sound that rippled through space like poison. The harvest would begin at dawn. On Koroth 9, the humans prepared for war. They sharpened weapons and reinforced walls. They checked supplies and planned strategies. They said goodbye to loved ones and made peace with whatever gods they believed in. But they did not pray for survival. They prayed for victory. Dohun stood at the main gate, watching the sky. Beside him, Yuna was checking her equipment. Hana was briefing her scouts. Minji was preparing medical stations. Sunwoo was activating every defense system they had built. Taeho walked among them, speaking to each person, learning their names, thanking them for their courage. These were his people, his family, his army. When he reached the gate, Dohun handed him a weapon, a sword made from thornback bone, stronger than steel, sharp enough to cut through anything. "It's a good day to make history," Dohun said. Taeho took the sword and looked up at the black ships in the sky. "Then let's begin." Dawn came red and angry over Koroth 9. The sky split open as dropships fell from the Hollow fleet. Dozens of them, carrying nightmares to the surface. Taeho watched from the command post as the enemy landed across the valley. The Hollow emerged from their vessels like shadows given form. They were tall and thin, with skin as black as the void between stars. Their eyes burned with hungry light, and their limbs ended in claws that could tear through steel. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. Behind Taeho, 300 humans stood ready. It should have been impossible. It should have been suicide. But the humans were smiling, and that smile made even the ancient Hollow hesitate. "They expected prey," Yuna said quietly. "Let's show them what predators look like." The first wave attacked at sunrise. The Hollow moved like liquid darkness, flowing across the landscape toward new dawn. They expected the humans to hide behind their walls and wait for death. Instead, Dohun led the first charge. 50 soldiers burst from hidden positions across the valley, striking the Hollow from the sides. They moved through the terrain like ghosts, using every rock and shadow as a weapon. Dohun had trained them well. They did not fight like soldiers. They fought like hunters. The Hollow screamed as human blades found their flesh. They tried to retreat, to regroup, but the humans followed them, chased them, cut them down. "They're not used to prey that fights back," Hana reported from her position on the ridge. She was directing scout teams, coordinating attacks, making sure no Hollow escaped into the wilderness. "Their formation is breaking, but there were always more." The Hollow ships kept sending reinforcements. Wave after wave of dark creatures pouring onto the planet's surface. For every one that fell, 3 more took its place. The battle lasted all day. By noon, the humans had lost 30 fighters. By sunset, 50. Each death hurt like a knife in Taeho's heart. But he could not stop. He could not grieve. Not yet. Minji worked without rest in the medical caves. Her hands were covered in blood, both human and Hollow, as she saved everyone she could. Some wounds were too severe. Some soldiers died in her arms, thanking her for trying. Night fell, and the Hollow retreated temporarily. They were confused. In all their centuries of harvesting, no prey had ever fought this hard. No species had ever made them bleed this much. The matriarch watched from orbit, her ancient mind burning with something she had not felt in millennia. Interest. These humans were not like the others. They did not break. They did not bend. They burned with a fire that made even her cold heart stir. She descended personally, bringing her elite guard. If these creatures were so special, she would harvest them herself. The second day was worse. The matriarch led the assault, a towering figure of absolute darkness that drank in the light around her. Her presence alone killed 3 humans who looked directly into her eyes. Their minds simply stopped working, overwhelmed by her ancient power. But Tejo did not look away. He met her gaze across the battlefield, and something in his eyes made her pause. There was no fear there. No despair. Only a promise of violence that matched her own. "You are strong," she called out, her voice echoing across the valley. "Stronger than any we have harvested. Join us willingly, and your death will be painless." Tejo raised his sword. "Come and try." The matriarch attacked. She moved faster than thought, her claws reaching for Tejo's throat. He should have died instantly. Every other species would have. Instead, he blocked. His thornback blade caught her claws and held them back. She pushed harder, and he pushed back. Sparks flew. The ground cracked beneath their feet. Around them, the battle raged. Dohun fought like a demon, taking down hollow after hollow, with nothing but rage and skill. Yuna had weaponized the local wildlife, releasing tamed thornbacks into the enemy ranks. The massive beasts tore through the hollow like they were paper. Hana led a strike team into the ancient ruins. Sunwoo had discovered something in the Maker records, a failsafe built by the original inhabitants. A weapon designed specifically to destroy the hollow. It had never been activated because the Makers died before they could use it, but the humans had found it, and the humans would finish what the Makers started. "We're in position," Hana reported through the radio. "But we need time. The activation sequence takes 20 minutes. "You'll have it," Tejo replied, still locked in combat with the matriarch. 20 minutes. An eternity in battle. Tejo fought harder than he had ever fought in his life. The matriarch was ancient and powerful, but she was also slow, weighed down by millennia of easy victories. She had never faced an opponent who truly believed they could win. Tejo believed. He cut her. A small wound across her arm, but enough to draw blood. She screamed in surprise and anger. No prey had ever wounded her before. "What are you?" she demanded. Tejo smiled. "We are human, and we do not break." The minutes crawled by. More humans fell. The hollow pressed closer to new dawn, their numbers overwhelming the defenses. But the humans held on. They held on because they had no choice, because failure meant extinction, because they were too stubborn to die. Finally, Hana's voice crackled through the radio. "Activation complete. Everyone get down." A beam of pure white light erupted from the ancient citadel. It shot into the sky, piercing the hollow fleet in orbit. Ships exploded one after another, their darkness consumed by the light of a civilization that had died but never truly surrendered. On the ground, the hollow soldiers fell. The light burned through them, dissolving their shadows, leaving nothing behind but ash. They screamed as they died, their ancient voices fading into silence. The matriarch tried to flee, but Tejo would not let her. He grabbed her arm and held on, pulling her back toward the light. "Let me go," she shrieked. "I have lived for 1,000,000 years. I cannot die here." Tejo looked into her burning eyes, and he felt nothing but contempt. "You killed worlds. You murdered civilizations. You turned paradise into hell." He raised his sword. "Today, you die like everything else." The blade came down. The matriarch fell. The light faded. The sky cleared. The hollow fleet was gone, reduced to scattered debris falling through the atmosphere like burning rain. Silence settled over Korath 9. Tejo collapsed to his knees, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Around him, the survivors of New Dawn slowly emerged from cover. They looked at the empty sky, at the ashes of their enemies, at each other. They had won. Yuna reached him first. She knelt beside him, checking for wounds. "You're hurt." "I'm alive," he corrected. "That's enough." Dohun limped over, supporting himself on a broken spear. Blood covered half his face, but he was grinning. Well, that was fun. Despite everything, Tejo laughed. Genu set up the communication equipment one final time. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady as he opened a channel to the entire galaxy. This is Commander Tejo Kang of New Dawn. The Hollow are destroyed. Their fleet is gone. Their matriarch is dead. He paused. Humanity has won. The message spread across the stars. In 1,000 observation posts, aliens listened in stunned disbelief. The creatures they had sent to die had defeated an ancient evil that even the greatest civilizations feared. Tejo took the microphone. We're coming home, not to Earth. Earth is gone, too far away to matter anymore. Our home is wherever humanity stands. His voice grew harder. But we have not forgotten what you did. We have not forgotten the trial, the sentence, the exile. So prepare your explanations, Commonwealth. Prepare your apologies, because we will be there soon. He handed the microphone back to Genu and walked away. Months later, New Dawn had become a city. Ships arrived from across the galaxy, bringing diplomats and scientists and journalists who wanted to see the impossible for themselves. Humanity welcomed some of them, others were turned away. The Galactic Commonwealth offered reparations. They offered seats on the High Council. They offered anything and everything to make the humans forget. Humanity refused. We don't want your gifts, Tejo told the alien ambassadors. We want justice. Every species that voted for our death will answer for it. Not with blood, with truth. One by one, the guilty came forward. They explained their fear, their hatred, their ignorance. They apologized with words and actions. Some were forgiven, some were not. But humanity survived. Not just survived, thrived. On the anniversary of their arrival, the people of New Dawn gathered in the main square. Children played among the stone buildings, unafraid of the planet that had once been their prison. The Thornbacks were domesticated now, pulling carts and guarding borders. The acid rain fell on shields built by human hands. Tejo stood at the center of the crowd, older now but still strong. Beside him were Yuna, Dohun, Minji, Hana, Sunwoo, and Genu. The survivors, the builders, the conquerors. They sent us here to die, Tejo said. They expected us to vanish, to be forgotten. He looked out at his people, at the city they had built, at the future they had claimed. Instead, we became something they never imagined. We became unbreakable. The crowd cheered, and across the galaxy, the species that had once dismissed humanity as dangerous animals finally understood the truth. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent. Humans were dangerous because they never, ever gave up.